All right, we live. Thank you, Judge, for coming on. Thank you for your time and your patience. I know it's been a rough day, and I really thank you for it. Uh, I'm like, I ain't starstruck, but I appreciate you because I've been following you for a long time. You know what I mean? And
Well appreciated. That's what I am. Here I am.
you've been dropping a lot of knowledge. And the thing about it, and I appreciate the knowledge that you've been giving because I watch you when you go on Ron's show. And the conversation I have, I say, man, this brother has so much knowledge. He has seen and he also heard things, and he, things have definitely like got his attention on. So, for my followers, would you introduce yourself and who you are? Then we'll go into
Oh, well, yeah, I'm Judge Joe Brown, retired from doing the official stuff, but I do two things these days: provide service and sell sauce. That last one is barbecue sauce. Judge Joe Brown Barbecue, JJB
That's right.
BBQ.com. Go there, order yourself some. It's the best you've ever had. And we also do chicken links, smoked and raw,
Ooh.
mild, hot. And the chicken links are packed at the only black owned USDA certified packing plant in California. And
That's
if
right.
you want to try the stuff and you live in LA, go down in the hood to 79th and Western to D's Original Takeout Grill. They have chicken, turkey, goat. They've
Wow.
got
Wow.
lamb. They've got beef. They've got the classic pork. All kinds of stuff. And Chef Damon is the man. He does stuff for the celebrity star type.
Okay.
Good stuff. You can order it online. We have it offered by single bottles, 3 bottles, and whole pallets, which some people get, and it'll be the best stuff you've ever tasted. Now, that's sauce. Service. They talked me into doing this, so I am going to do it. In 2023, it'll be JJB 23. What
That's
that
right.
stands for is Judge Joe Brown, JJB, for mayor of Memphis, Tennessee in 2023. Send Brown downtown and take back your town.
That's right. That's right.
JJB 23.
That's right. That's right.
A
Judge,
simple message. They've stolen the city from the people. White,
yes.
black, brown, red, yellow. We've gotten ripped off, and the entire significant resources of the city have been allocated to a few. And we even have a majority black city council and county commission, but yet it does no good because they're more interested in this than the people that elected them. The people that elect them are just pathways to taking public service and making a lot of money from it. The other thing is, too, we have such an inefficient and poor uh, media set up here that name recognition counts. So they just got through electing people because their grandparents did something and they have absolutely
Mhm.
no experience in what they wanted to run for, but some got elected and some very good people got turned down because they didn't have the name recognition. And around here, you can't just advertise for political purposes. What you're doing is bribing because when you give the local media outlets advertising money, it just means if you give them more than the other guy, they won't badmouth you like they do the other guy. And if he gives them more, they'll badmouth you. So it's a
It's a money game, pretty
rigged
much.
little thing here, and there's too much damn corruption. We've got
Yeah.
problems with police, infrastructure. The utility company has gone to hell. Everybody's got a damaged car from the street problems, and the city council just sold to a developer 25 acres of land downtown for just $600,000, and that
Mm.
doesn't have to be paid for 10 years, and they're sinking 220 some million of the city's funds into building a luxury area for 28 rental properties.
Good Lord.
in a few booths, and then 240 some million dollars to renovate a hotel downtown that nobody in Memphis stays in, but it might generate a few tourist dollars for a few people. And that $500 million should have been spent on infrastructure. The police need to be reformed, and I have a way to do it. There's some things that you need to do to reach out to the youth to deal with them, but nobody has a clue. Nobody's interested. They brought in a chief of police, the first one they've had in 41 years, so that you can't fire the person. And that person got fired from Atlanta in North Carolina, but they brought that person in here. Well, I don't even need to go there. But the other thing is I've got a rule that ought to apply to everybody. If you're going to represent an area, you ought to be able to walk where your constituents are without getting your behind kicked unless you have an armed guard walking with you. So too many of them can't do that. And they've got another agenda entirely besides representing their people. We've got a congressman who is Jewish and white, gay, and he's elected in an area with 92% of his district black, and his effectiveness in the last 16 years is introducing a binding resolution that requires the congressional cafeteria to use only paper straws. Now, that's his contribution to his black constituents, and his ordinary middle class working man, small businessman type has gotten just as little. So we have these kind of problems, and we have the dubious distinction of being number one in America in violent criminality right now. So they're killing people left and right. And in terms of absolute numbers, we run number 5 in the nation behind LA, New York, Chicago, Dallas, Memphis, Houston, Miami, and Detroit, et cetera, et cetera. And that's getting to be a real mess. And nobody is doing anything about turning this around. Now, I did starting 30 years ago when I got on the bench, and it actually was making a provable and demonstrable result. But once I retired 22 years ago from that, hey,
it went down.
Went down because nobody had the energy to go keep running it. But it should be done now. We need to take the police back, and instead of putting civilian review boards, we need to put the police under civilian control. The person in charge needs to be a civilian, and just like that's with the Pentagon, you've got the president. That corresponding thing would be me, the mayor, and then you've got a Secretary of Defense. We should have say something like a civilian director of police, and then you've got a subsecretary, the Army, Navy, Air Force, etc., and subsecretaries under them. We need sub-directors over homicide, uniform patrol, traffic, juvenile matters. We need block communications where you put them directly into the police net through the dispatcher rather than having to do 911. We need to take some of these abandoned facilities, turn them into local precincts, let the youth get in there and mix and mingle. And, you're not going to shoot somebody up inside the police station. I don't think they're that crazy, but
it might be. It might be some people here that's crazy.
I will talk to them and I'll get them uncrazy. See, somebody needs to be the village chieftain to go down there. I did it when I was on the bench 30 some years ago. So I'd go out and look. Hey, man, what you doing out? Didn't I tell you to be home at 10 o'clock? Oh, Judge, no, you see me tomorrow.
That's right.
At 11 o'clock.
Accountability.
Who you talking, man? Did I ask you? This is A and B conversation. You want to get to be part of this? All right, well, sit your ass down there and I'll talk to you. So half hour, I got 15 people there. And when the sun's up, we're still talking about manhood. See, that's one problem we've got. We don't have enough men in the hood or in the hallways. And that's why so many hoods and hallways get shot up, because of the lack of manhood. See, if you're a man, you look in the mirror and every morning you say, hey, man, did you do what you were supposed to do yesterday? You going to do it today? Are you preparing for tomorrow? So you can be looking death in the face, but I'm a hero. I can rise to the occasion. I can kill off the fire-breathing Gila monster, setting fire to the tunnel so nobody can see daylight, but I can get the people to the end of the tunnel so they can. That's a man thing. See, you have to give people a purpose and a cause, and the most fundamental one is manhood and womanhood. All these folk running around getting their freak on with no standards. See, men are about making where they live better, safer, more secure places filled with economic prosperity, sense of purpose, morality, and ethics. We are men of public peace, dignity, and order who can be brave and courageous when necessary. But you see, they want everybody to punk out and go put on a dress, you know, and go act like you lost your mind and talking about you about to die and you got all these rationalizations for what you're doing and you ain't manning up and you're living off of some woman instead of providing one, and you talk about we got $130,000 family income. How much you put in that, brother? About 15, 20,000. Well, you broke fool. You ain't doing a damn
You ain't
thing.
doing anything, yeah.
You just simping and pimping.
So, Judge,
hey,
I just want to, you know, because you did hit some major points, and I'm just soaking it all in. Like far as with the police department, I see that now it's like they covering up for the police when they do something bad, but they quick to hold other people accountable, but nobody holding them accountable.
Well, they need to hold everybody accountable. I mean, I'm sick to hell of all this bullshit we run on each other about we victimized by the police. See, there's an interesting thing about American police. They one almost perfectly reflect the political realities in an area. If the people that get mistreated, that's because politically they ain't shit. And why aren't we shit? Because we act like we're not shit. You see, every other ethnic group in this country periodically says, screw you. We don't like what you're doing. We're going to vote for the other side, even if we have to hold our noses to do it. So with us, we always vote Democratic, no matter what the Democratic Party does not deliver for us. We always vote against the Republicans, no matter what the Republicans deliver. So it's like, why should one do anything for us when they're going to get our votes reliably, like we're slaves on a plantation, and the other ones just say this exercise in futility? You know, they belong to those folk over there, the ones that started the plantations and came up with that party 100 and 200 years ago, literally, to spread more of them around as two-legged cattle with slavery and keep them on the plantation. So they going back home. But, you know, I don't like Democrats or Republicans. That's why I claim to be an independent. But we have to learn that we don't belong to anybody.
Nope.
As a matter of fact, your great-grandparents or grandparents, depending upon how old you are, invariably voted Republican up until about 1960-something. You didn't find black folk anywhere voting Democrat except they crossed over and voted for Franklin Delano Roosevelt with his New Deal, and then Truman because he reached out. And that's how they got it. Kennedy did a little reach out thing, and Nixon was a stupid fuck any damn way. Excuse me, idiot.
No, you say
a crook, for you, arrogant damn crook. But you know, it was what it was, and then we got stuck on stupid from that point on. And you know, what did we got? We got a racist MF in the White House as jackass in chief, and I'm not letting that fool off the hook. And
but do you think
a much better job than his incompetent jerk self does if it came to it? So I can say that we're about the same age. And the other thing too is, first time I heard that fool, it was 50 years ago. I was doing an intern thing at a DC think tank, and that racist MF was out there talking about he knew the Negro, and Negroes were just animals, and they turned the streets into jungles, and the Negro children turned schools into zoos. So he was going to, with John B. Stennis and James O. Eastland, et cetera, they were going to come up with some zoos where they could put the Negro animals so they would be safe, meaning penitentiaries.
He did say that he didn't want his kids.
94 wasn't a bad one. 91 was bad. 88 was bad. And 81 was real bad, and 79 was just plain awful. That's the one where they abolished federal parole. So you get 5 years in the federal penitentiary, that's 60 months. You wind up being under federal custody and control for 58 out of that 60 months with all good and honor time. So what that winds up being is after 54 months out of 60, you go through a halfway house, and then you get released
Yeah,
into
that's the process.
managed custody by the feds. So I mean, they're putting black folk away for a long time.
For a long time, yeah.
And but see, some of those black folk need
Deserve
the
it.
penitentiary.
Yeah.
Now let me say this: there are innocent people in the penitentiaries, but for the most part, that's not the case. See, for the last century, outside of certain areas in the South, and for the last 50 years, even including the South, 97 plus 6 or 7% of all people in the penitentiaries pled guilty. Just a little over 2% got found guilty. That's where you find most of the people who are in there that shouldn't be in there because of an inappropriate, ineffective assistance of counsel or whatever it may be. And out of that 97+% that pled guilty, 84 to 87% confessed. Well, yeah, man, they made him confess. No. Many times as a defense lawyer or as a criminal court judge, you sit in on these motions to suppress and they tape it, and you go back in the judge's chambers and everybody's set up to record it. I know I had a whole bunch of motions to suppress, and I'm looking at this guy who's out in my courtroom talking about he's an OG on the break. Yeah, man, I'm OG, man. You know, it's all about the posse, man. You know, I was hanging tough, man. You know, I'm upholding, man. And then you watch him on the video. Sir, this is a very serious crime. You have a right to be represented by an attorney. If you cannot afford one, we would suggest that you allow us to secure one to advise you before you make any statement. I don't want no lawyer. I just want to talk to my mama. Darling, talk about mama, and I tell you anything you want. Snot running all out his nose, tears running out his eyes. He's used up half a box of Kleenex, and he don't leave it at that. If you want, man, I tell you anything you want, man. It was Short Dog and Stomp, man, Little Air, man. It's your mom, man. This is what he did, man. He just made me do it, man. You see,
hey, Judge, you be cutting up.
hey, you get out there, see you punk ass fool.
Hey, but you
I
know,
mean, and they're stupid. Like,
I mean, they don't even think no more, Judge.
They had to torture them to find out they was doing. No, damn fools did a drive-by, shot up 7 people, killed 4 of them. And you know how they got caught? The damn fools did 250 Xerox copies of the newspaper article and signed them, saying, "Yay, man, this was us." It passed them out. Like, what?
Hey, Judge, they do stuff now.
The other one, like I had one, they
don't even think
in the community about doing wrong. Some little 18-year-old, 21-year-old little white girl, 5 feet 1 inches tall, pistol whipped these fools and took them into custody when they tried to hold up. It's like, man, come on. Like,
I just look at it now, Judge. As far as now, I know you've seen Trump and Biden. Now, some people say that Biden has dementia. I don't know how true that is, but all the stuff that's going on with Trump, is this stuff that's you think they trying to plot against him for keep him from running? Or?
Well, the point is this.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to distract attention for their pathetic performance. See, there's one group, a quasi-religious group, a cult, that seems to have gotten it right in the last couple of decades. That's LGBTQ, the rainbow cult.
Really?
And they are being installed as the official religion of America. You see their flags on federal buildings. They paint the sidewalks in that color. They paint the crosswalks. They paint LGBTQIA plus down the middle of a broad street. You know, town can be mostly black, but you don't see black, red, green anywhere. You can't teach anything about the cross, crescent, or the 6-star, or the 6-armed deity for Buddhism. I mean, not Buddhism, for Hinduism, or Buddha sitting smiling with a fat pot belly. You can't put that out, but you can put rainbow out. and you have from second grade, third, fourth grade at public libraries sponsored by the city, and in kindergarten, first, second, third, etc. You've got these tranny freaks dressed up like girls, harlots rather, madams running a brothel, and they do what they do, appealing to the uh, fact that physiologically human children are most responsive to a female until they get 7, and they fill their heads with this brainwashed agenda so the children, before they even learn, before they can get a hard on, want to become eunuchs, chop their own balls and dicks off, get
That's
fixed.
crazy.
They don't even use veterinarians. Hell, I can understand it. Oh, well, I'm not a man, I'm not a woman, take me to the vet and fix me or spay me, that's what it is. Dude ain't even got old enough to get a hard on, get some nookie and see what the hell it is, or she hadn't gotten old enough to get wet, so they want to dry it up and cut it off. That's crazy.
I don't understand. Like, for prime example, why you saying that, Dwayne Wade's son, he just gave all his rights to his son.
Don't even talk to me about that useless fool. See, that's one of the problems. We've always had a fixation on physical prowess. You badass physically. That's admirable. People should aim for that, because that also had a translation over from being a warrior or a hunter, back when that counted. Now, we tend to fix on them nowadays, and they aren't doing anything. What does dude do? Well, he can put up everybody. You sure can't shoot, man. He can slam. Well, yeah, but that's entertainment. So you talk about somebody supposed to be a hero, and you listen to them because they get paid millions of dollars, of what you try to do and waste your time on for fun? What's wrong with you, man? You crazy? You done lost your mind giving this dude all your ducats, man, so you can watch him put a ball in a hoop, when the real sport out there is politics, man. That's what it's about. Man, that's some real life stuff with consequences. Plus, it's got to do with where you live, how much money you make, what kind of car you drive, and whether you're safe walking down the streets, and whether the police think you were some kind of wild animal needing to be brought back to the zoo, or they work for you.
I think it's just something just to keep us blindsided, because you know how like horse got his blinders on. They don't want you to see what's going on around. They just trying to keep you focused, to keep you bound what's great to happen. Because I truly believe they got something coming. They gonna catch us off guard with it.
Well, look, they don't have to. We do it ourselves.
Yeah, we do a good job of it.
See, I'm at my age, I could buy whiskey before the 1960s were out. And I saw this develop. You got this that got on the front end. You got lesbians that hated men, feminists that hated that they weren't men, beta boys, soy boys that hated that they weren't strong men, gay boys that hated they were not normal men. And then you put that with this anti-war thing that hated men for supposedly causing war. You had a real mess going on, and I heard them across the nation at various college campuses, including the one I went to, UCLA. And they were plotting on taking control of everything and getting control of the media so they could propagandize. Now, back 55 years ago, it took 6 weeks for a fad to develop with the communications they had then. It takes about 10, 12, 14 days now for something like that to happen. So what are we talking about? Well, one time it went black power, power to the people. I'm black and I'm proud. Afro, beard, dashiki. I mean, that went on for about 6 years, from say 1966 up until about 1971 or 2. Then you had Superfly, Rod O'Neal with his pressed hair and the toupee on to cover his bald spot, wearing platform shoes, pimp brim, driving a pimped out ride, selling drugs and living high style. And before that, you had Black Caesar with Fred the Hammer Williams, the football player, playing a gangster who was a drug dealer and a murderer. He becomes the hero, and at the end, He rides off into the sunrise in a limo smoking a big cigar. It's like, what the hell's going on? You got pretty looking Pam Grier, Foxy Brown, and she got knocked down 10 or 12 times in every movie, and every time she fell down, one or two tits would pop out of the top, or a tush would flash.
She get right back
black
up.
exploitation. They came up with a thing. Let me tell you how it started. See, back in the mid 60s, when you went to a movie as an adult, you paid 50 cents if you went to an upscale movie house. All right. The movie mark changed every Thursday and Sunday. You got 2 movies, 2 or 3 cartoons, and a third sub feature. So you could walk in whenever you wanted, sit through what was coming up, sit through the next movie and the part of the movie you missed when you came in, or sit through them all over again. And color TV was coming of age. So it was causing the movie industry to go broke. So they started firing a lot of executive old hands, and they started bringing in a lot of new, youthful whatevers. But you see, they had an idea. They said, we're going to solve this money crisis by, instead of having 2 movies, which made the studios make several hundred a year, we are going to have just 1 movie. And instead of charging 50 cents, we're going to charge $1.25, $1.50, which was big money back then. And we are going to have it run as long as people will come. And guess what? There is this underrepresented audience. There's Afro-Americans, the black folk. They're out there and they want to see themselves. Now, we can give them stuff where they become college students and businessmen, but a lot of them, they can't see themselves doing this. So let's pick the pimps and the hoes and the drug dealers and the ones that they can identify with, and they will flock in and pay good money and bail us out. And we did. Black exploitation movies bailed out Hollywood, and dug a ditch for us, a rabbit hole. We went down it. And for a half century, we have been eating up glorification of dysfunction, all kinds of stuff. The Woman King, the Black Panther movie. By the way, that was the highest grossing movie, highest grossing superhero movie of all time. And of all places, the biggest box office was where? Memphis, Tennessee. And we had folk buying up blocks of tickets 3 weeks in advance so they could show up in all of their bright colored African robes and sandals and dress their kids up in all kinds of whatever imagined black African attire. And it was a poisonous movie that culminated with a fight to the death between the women and men of the tribe. Oh, wow. Just think about that. And then if you want to get into African things, African history for real, and the Woman King, well, you need to look up Dahomey and his hook up with the slave trade and some other things and understand what the reality is. But you see, what was going on with Black Panther? Well, in 2011, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals issued a judgment against ABC and Disney. You remember that series?
Yeah, I remember hearing something about that. Yeah.
You remember that series, So You Want to Be a Millionaire?
Yeah, I remember that show.
Well, the directors, producers, and some of the principals sued ABC and Disney for about $7 million. Well, ABC and Disney drug their feet, went through everything they could, and finally they got to the Ninth Circuit. The Ninth Circuit says, we're going to fix this. Said this industry doesn't understand Rule 1 of American contract law, and that is that all parties are expected to deal with each other in good faith. We'll fix it. So they upped the requested amount from $7 million to $580 million. And there was no place to appeal it. So the judgment, when Black Panther, the movie, came along, was going toward $1.5 billion. So the plaintiffs had a lien on all ABC and Disney property, and most of the rides at Disney World and Disneyland were supplying the income to them. So they needed the Black Panther movie to get the cash flow so they could pay down the interest. See, they got a lot of money going in and out, but it's on reciprocity and on the books. It's not cash in hand.
Okay.
So they needed that. So black folks saved Disney and ABC, and the way they rewarded black folk is to commit themselves to Marvel Comics being modified so 50% of the characters would be gay, transsexual, lesbian, or some freak.
So that was okay, if we do this, y'all got to do this. So I'm looking at it like now that it's not even hit no more. Like when I was coming up, we was not allowed to even talk about it. We see it, we didn't see it, but now it's just flown open to a point now we can't even say nothing against it.
Yeah, and see, that is a bad thing. That is fascist. That is suppressing the First Amendment on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. You can't say anything that makes somebody feel uncomfy.
Mm-hmm.
First Amendment doesn't give a damn about whether you feel uncomfortable, and it doesn't make even bad mouthing somebody illegal. It might subject you to defamation of character in a civil action, but truth is an absolute defense. But now they're acting like they're straight up Nazi. By the way, what Nazi stands for, Nazi, that's a German acronym for guess what? National Socialist Workers Party.
Wow. Break that down, Judge.
National Socialist Workers Party. That's what Nazi stands for. So they had a big homosexual component in the Nazi party. They had the Night of the Long Knives. The SA, headed by their commander, Rom, had been advocating open homosexuality. The rest of the Nazis said that's a bad thing and they wouldn't stop. So on the Night of the Long Knives, they rounded up everybody, including Rom, who they found in the bed screwing his chauffeur. And they executed all of them. So, even for them, it was a little bit too much. But last little anecdote. 55 years ago, I was the teaching assistant for a visiting professor from Europe.
Wow.
And she said, America is in grave danger of becoming a fascist country, not from some jackboot wearing, goose stepping uniform thugs, but from, as she put it, some pink panty wearing, long haired beatniks, hippies, who would switch and twitch their way into opposing the worst methods of fascism in the name of protecting you from you without any hesitancy. And that's exactly what we've got. We don't have free speech anymore now because what good's it going to do to go out and find a local park nobody's in and stand on a typical milk crate and start running down politics or points like Malcolm used to do in Harlem, literally standing on a milk crate. You can't do that anymore. Facebook, Instagram,
lock you up.
YouTube, and anything else they close down, so they take benefit of FCC. You use these things to communicate, and that requires a federal license to broadcast and do what they do with the limited airways frequencies. So they belong to the public. They operate at the public's cost. They impact interstate commerce, and they certainly are subject to regulation. And that being the case, you can't get away from this thing that they cannot impose an impediment to free speech. So you have a right to say what you want. Here's what you can't say. They used to say you could not talk about obscenity, but now they have stuff out there where dudes bare-assed on a float swinging their bare dicks, and kids come up, get to pull on them, and everybody giggles like, wow, somebody needs to be locked up, but that's okay. So no obscenity. The other one is you can't knowingly create disorder by doing something like falsely yelling fire in a crowded theater. And you can't generate an immediate physical combat by hurling fighting words at somebody that's likely to cause an ordinary reasonable person to get up and punch you out. You can't do that, but otherwise anything you want to say. Now, if you go way over the line, it's defamation of character, but again, truth is a defense to a defamation act. So we don't even have that. They just say, if you don't say what we want you to say, we will cut you off. We'll shadow block you. We will ban you. We will really cut back on anything. And if somebody is more organized than they are, an evil supporter of Trump or something, then you don't need to hear what they have to say. Now, if you want to get into this and you don't want to read it because you're too damn lazy, Google Animal Farm. And there's a pretty good feature-length animation that you can bring up. It's called Animal Farm. It was put out in 1952 by the CIA as propaganda in Europe. And there is a connection being made with the Nazis, the fascists, and with communism in there. What happens is a bunch of animals have a revolution and take over a farm. Well, they're successful. They drive the humans off. So what the animals do is they come up with a constitution and they write the constitution on the wall of the barn. And the constitution starts off with all animals are equal. Well, there are these pigs who enlist the help of some dogs, and they stage a counter-revolution and they take over, and then they modify that constitution, and it says all animals are equal / but pigs are more equal than others. So they make the pig pen the whole farm, and the pigs lord it over all the rest of the animals because they have more rights than other animals. And that's what we have here, a big pig pen, when certain people who have taken control of the political process engage in oppression. Now, our Black Caucus is not representative of the Black people, of their Black constituents, because too many of them are into that Q thing. On their site, Q stands for queer and questioning. And too many of them questioned, and they did the 6B routine. They unbelted, 1, dropped breeches, 2, drop boxers, 3, bent over, 4, spread butt cheeks, 5, and got butt boy banged, 6.
Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah. So they've been hiding that. So they are deep into that, and they want to come out the closet, but they want to make it safe. So look at them. You can tell them. They looked at, well, now that's their business. I don't give a damn if they, hey, hell, get the freak on in the bedroom. That's their business. But when you start trying to recruiting children.
Yeah, that's when my problem
There's the problem.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, you can't even talk about man and woman anymore. They don't have normal sex in the school. You can't talk about that, but you can talk about queer sex. Or,
well, you know what they're doing now is they letting the queers come into the schools now, read to the kids.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. See, they're
crazy.
Dressed up like harlots. So, the kids get a negative impression of women by looking at these fake harlots coming there, looking like madams in a brothel.
I call them straight faggots. That's what I call them.
Children are most receptive to females until they get over 7 years of age. Now, that's what they're doing. When they're most susceptible, they're dealing with it. Now, good people that are good Christians, if you ask them about it, they can remember when Mama said, if you're going to go to church on Sunday, you can't go anywhere else the rest of the week. So she drug them to church, Sunday school, Bible study, choir practice. And by the time they're 5 or 6 or 7 years old, they're totally brainwashed. There's no way they're going to back off from that or question the rest of their lives. Same thing if they're Islamic. Maybe they converted later in life, or they're Jewish, or whatever it may be. Mothers take children to these places of worship so they become inculcated with the religion by the time they're 6 or 7. Well, guess what? How many hours does the child get taken to church, synagogue, or mosque?
Not that much.
Not that much. And look what happens. Well, on the other hand, the mothers who want to be good mothers and prepare their children for the world and get a jump on academia, they take their children to the library so these squares can read to them and put this mess in their heads. All right. Now, they do that several times a week. They're 2, 3, 4, 5 years old and they're most impressionable. Then they get into school. They run that stuff by them at school. 6, 7, 8 years old, 9 years old. And since 85 to 87% of the American school teachers are female, and a lot of them are into that hate man, toxic masculinity garbage, they put a very negative image in the child's head. So now they have these clinics and these progressive studies where the children need to be converted as early as 8, 9 years old. And you have Charlize Theron, the South African witch who isn't put in jail for child abuse. She takes these 2 black boys she adopted and girls them the hell out, and that's supposed to be okay. It's not. And you've got Wade doing that thing with his weird sick wife. Oh, let's turn them into,
Well,
harmless.
she don't care because it's not her child. That's why she don't care, because it's not her child. She has a daughter by Wade, but she looking at it, hey, I wipe my hands of that because that's not my child. But look at society now, Judge. They have pretty much saying everything is okay. We're going to throw it in your face. You can't say nothing because as soon as you say something, we're going to ban you, because I'm blocked on Facebook because I talk about it on my podcast. And I'm like, yo, this is just not right. How can you look at a good TV show and they shut you down? It's like homosexuals right in your face. And then when you say something, you get the muscle up and say, I'm going to say something. They be like, well, you violate, you gay bashing, you hate. No, I don't hate gay people. I hate the deeds that they do. That's what I hate.
Don't even hate the gay people. It's not all gays. It is this cult. And I know a lot of gay folk I met out in California for 15 years with this show. You know what they say?
What?
LGBTQ is a cult, and all of them don't abide by it. One of them explained it to me this way. So it's like, how many Christians do you have? How many Muslims do you have? Do you think that just because somebody is Islamic, they support Al Qaeda and ISIS? No. Do you think that just because somebody's Christian, they were in love with Reverend
Fake Ike?
No, Reverend Jones, and drinking Kool-Aid at large church picnics?
Yeah, he was terrible, man.
Yeah, I mean, all those folk killed themselves, or he killed them.
I don't get it, Judge.
See, it's just because somebody's gay doesn't mean they deal with that. And like another one told me, said, look, he does what he does, but he wishes he hadn't been converted and then he was normal. And that stuff's not normal. Okay, glasses. You got on glasses.
Mm-hmm.
We need these to see because our visual acuity is not what it is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So if our vision was normal, we wouldn't need these.
Yeah.
Well, these people are not normal because they don't fit into the natural pattern. And, Mother Nature, they are, well, okay, fine. But a whole lot of people need glasses, but that's not called normal. That's abnormal vision if you're not 20/20 and you need these things to read a page.
Mm-hmm.
But we are not going out trying to convert everybody to bad eyesight and say, hey, you got to get your eyes fixed so you can't see either. Now, so that is something we need to deal with. And it's unfortunate, but they wouldn't be needing to recruit so tough if it was all natural. Now, Charlize Theron says, I decided that I was going to make him a girl because he said he wanted to be a girl when he just turned 2 years old. Hell, that's bull, because children challenge adults to see how adults react to what they do. See, if he'd say, Mom, I want to be a girl, and she says, son, you're going to be a man, he would have dropped it. That would have been the end of it. He might have tried once or twice to see if she was serious, but once he found out, that's the end of it. That's how humans learn. But these idiots who know nothing about parenting jump right in. Oh, he said he wanted to be a girl. Oh, hell no. Or the other one is some female wants to be a man. And it's a no way. You don't become a man because you say you are one. You got to do the deeds. You know,
Yeah.
the man is a status. You
Yeah.
have to earn that. And if you ain't got a dick, you ain't got prime one characteristic. Now, let me
Hey, but they got the fake ones out here, Judge.
yeah, but let me put it to you this way. When you see a human, what are you looking at?
Flesh and dirt.
No, look at basic. You're looking at a successful fuck. Somebody had a fuck that knocked somebody up. A successful
Hey.
fuck. Fuck got birth, and that fuck grew up, found another opposite sex member, and there was another successful fuck, and there's another somebody birthed, raised, matured, had another successful fuck, and you can go back thousands of years, and that's what it's all about. If you ain't into that successful fucking, you're kind of out of it. You know, so I'm sorry for you. You
Wow.
know, but it's like the name of the game, and I always say fuck wisely so you don't have ugly, stupid children.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I'm like, I mean, sometimes, Judge, I just look at how, as Black folks, you know, and I keep telling people that Black folks ain't gonna get it together. Oh, Ronnie, you so negative. You ain't no, but I'm seeing what's in front of me. I can only speak what's in front of me. We ain't gonna come together. We so damaged to ourselves till we don't realize we got the power, but we take the power from each other.
Yeah. Now, look at it this way. We need to understand that we do a lot of this to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We need to stop doing it to ourselves, and we need to take a step back. For example, in the last 50 years, I remember when they had the first one, take your daughter to work week.
Yeah,
They
I
have
remember
never had to take your son to work week. Oh, well, we need to even things up. Well, it's gotten even, and the pendulum is way over to the other side. For the last 20 years, on average, only 28% of each year's high school graduates are male. Only 32% of the college and university undergrads at public institutions are male. Only 36% of the grad students at these institutions are male, and only 44% of the workforce is male. The one that used to be of some accuracy was men got paid more for doing the same job than women. Well, people said, well, that's women take off. They have their cycles. They have to be mothers and all this other stuff. But now the truth of the matter is over the last decade, most of the settlements have been for males not getting paid the same as females for doing the same job, particularly in the high-tech industries. So things have reversed. In the last I checked, the girls aren't the ones doing the drive-bys or shooting up the hallways.
Yeah,
Boys
well,
shoot up the hoods, and
you
the
got a lot
boys
of them
shoot
that's
up
out
the
here
hallways.
that's shooting up the hood. Because like here in DC, and I know you from DC, so I know it hasn't got worse since you left.
Oh, way worse.
Yeah, it done got
It's
worse.
Chocolate City, now it's Gay City. Everything's
Yeah.
instead of black.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it now, like don't you know here on down Georgetown, Wisconsin Avenue, DuPont Circle, here up, let's go uptown, like Georgia Avenue, like off of Kennedy, Kenya, Delphi, all them places are now nothing but white folks now. And I remember up there was nothing but black folks. Now it's
about 14th and U used to be straight down in the hood. What is it?
Now it's a mess. It's nothing but all white folks down there now. That's
well, not just white folk. Try finding a restaurant that doesn't have a rainbow flag in its windows or rainbow tablecloths laid out.
Yeah, I mean, it's just now they forcing on you now. It's like I'm the type of person man, I don't judge nobody because only one person can judge me. But my thing is that, that's your life, but keep it in your circle. Don't try to spread your junk like jelly on a sandwich, because now you're affecting everybody around you because you pushing your rights on somebody else. And then when I say something about it, you ready to string me up. I don't
Yeah,
get
get your freak on, but don't try to kick in the doorway to my house and go get it on in my living room. I don't
Yeah.
want part of it. Speaking of which, double standard.
Mm.
I was in a movie a couple of weeks ago, and I'm leaving the place, and I'm looking on the wall, and I see this Disney poster, and I see another one for something coming up with DC Comics, and then I see another one right in the middle, and all these kids just happen to be coming out of this movie, and they were looking. And there's this dude grabbing a handful of another dude's ass, and that dude's grabbing the first one's ass. So I'm saying, they would have a freak fit if they had a guy grabbing a woman's ass, and they'd be yelling all kinds of sexist, this, that, and the other. You see, where is this?
This
What's
is
going on? We can't even do this for straight folk.
nope.
And remember, straight folk are the ones that do the fucking,
Mm-hmm.
with serious consequences. So they produce those successful fucks. Now, there are some folk that are not straight that fuck, but they dip both sides. That's that bisexual thing. But the
Mm-hmm.
truth of the matter is, that's even getting crazy. I don't think guys should run out on something that they engineer, but too often they aren't really the driving engine. It's the females.
Mm-hmm.
There is this problem, guys. You need to be deeply embarrassed by this statistic. White, black, brown, red, yellow. It's consistent for all the ethnic groups. Under 25, there are more boy virgins than there are all girl virgins. There are more girls getting laid than boys, and it's the same guys getting all the booty.
This kind of remind me of your boy Hoover, how they caught him when he passed in a dress.
Yeah,
they don't talk about that though. See,
they
shy away from that.
Yeah, and see, it's kind of bad because one of the other things about manhood is, if you're a man and you're on the Titanic too, whether it's a spaceship or another ocean ship and it's going down or it's about to bite the dust or the water, you have to be willing to say, look, man, you and your child, you can have my seat on the lifeboat. I'll stay here and perish. That takes a lot of doing. But now some little freak in a dress, oh, I want to get on. No, get your ass off of that seat. That's for the women and children. I have no reason to defer to you. I don't go that way. I ain't fucking you because you ain't got no nookie. You got ass. And I don't want any of that. That's not my preference. So, you get your ass over there and you want to become useful. In fact, you don't have the nerve. We throw your ass over there, chum these space sharks, ocean sharks, so they'll stay away from the women and children in the lifeboats.
I just look at it now that society say everything's okay now. Everything is normal. Be cool. And hold up, something ain't right with this. Judge, something's just not right.
Of course it's not. You see, that's been the methodology for a long time. See, the stuff that works, it's been working for thousands of years. The Roman legionnaires used it. The Marine Corps uses it now, or used to use it. It works on kids in school. They used it on us when I was in elementary school, junior high, and high school. They don't now. And they're wondering why stuff has gone to hell, because you're not doing the stuff, that toxic masculinity crap. You see, what they call toxic is in fact the absence of masculinity. That's the control factor on the apex predator. Apex predator, that's the top badass meat-eating something on the planet. And we kill everything on this damn planet at our pleasure. Everything is supposed to be protected by us. Mama elephant, one of the most loving mothers in nature, they're in danger. So send $19 a month to save the elephants. Tiger, you used to be king of the jungle. No more. Now you're in danger. Send $19 a month to World Wildlife Fund to save the tigers. Poor Oscar will be out there in the freezing cold this winter, suffering and won't know love. Send $19 to ASPCA. Poor Jamal will be suffering with more no love. Everywhere in America, there is a Negro being abused by some white supremacist every hour. So send $19 a month to save a Negro. You know, it's embarrassing.
I mean, I just want to turn the page a little bit, Judge, before we end this. What do you think about, because they're making a big charade of the Queen who didn't care about nobody, all the stuff that she stolen, and they buried the women been alive on the earth for like 2 weeks.
It's who are you stealing it from? You know, if you live in Los Angeles and the Lakers win the playoff, you're celebrating.
Mm-hmm.
If you are maybe for the Phoenix Suns and you had money on that and they lost, you're not celebrating, or vice versa. See, for the English, they're celebrating a long tradition of wealth. Now, you have to understand Queen Elizabeth's ancestor that got her on the throne was William the Conqueror. Wow. William I, King of England. He was also known as William the Bastard, Duke of Normandy. And he was a brutal somebody. He was known for Willie's worms. What did that mean? Well, to prove his point to the English countryside when he imposed his will, he'd have his troops fall on a village, seize 10 people, pluck their eyes out, put hot pokers in their ears and burn them out, rip their tongues out, amputate both arms, both legs, cut the genitals off, so they would have to squirm through the mud and the filth, and the villagers would have to feed them. And every time they fed them, they would be reminded of the might of William the Conqueror. So that's her ancestor. So when you deal with that, you have to understand that England one time possessed the mightiest empire in world history. And they used to brag about the sun never set on the British Empire, and the British Navy controlled everything that floated on the seas. And it was a matter of the Royal Navy, and the Navy belonged to the Queen, and before that to the King. And it started off with Henry VIII, the one that had all those wives. He started the English Navy. The Royal Air Force belonged to the monarchy. Now, the Army belonged to Parliament. But the British took pride in that. So, yes, they were proud of that. These underlings that they colonized that led them to this great wealth, they should have been better at what they did and defended themselves. And I'm sorry, by right of conquest, this, that, and the other, you know, I say, jolly old show, you know, they quite couldn't cope now. You know, they should have gotten that act together and all of that, you know, but we simply prevailed, pip, pip, cheerio, and all of this. You know, they just went around, they were good at ass kicking. So now they got a fit back in the middle of the 20th century, and America took their position because they were too much into, you know, having a good time and not dealing with realities. And America's too much into having a good time and not dealing with reality. And the People's Republic of China, the Russians, Pakistan, and India, they're taking over where we used to be. So in another 35 years, if I was a young person, I'd be studying Russian or Mandarin Chinese, because they'll be running the world, not the U.S. And the U.S. will be down because the Chinese may come up with a neutralization for nuclear ballistic missile submarines, which is how we control the world right now, the U.S. Navy, and they are falling behind too. So it's a bad thing. And we're spending more money now proportionately on dudes getting their dicks cut off and artificial twats made. And they sign up by invitation for a term of service, but most 2/3 of that term of service is spent on surgery, recovery, and rehabilitation so they can be neutered. They can go to the vets and get fixed. They become voluntary eunuchs. So Why should we do that? Like, for example, all of the troops that got mutilated or killed from IEDs, improvised explosive devices, in the Middle East, well, they came up with these Rhino mine-resistant vehicles, but you can buy 2 of them for the price of the surgery for one freak. So why are we spending one freak in sending him to his paradise of fun and pleasure so he can make believe and be generally useless when there are 12 to 20 some young people who are in danger of dying of getting mutilated because of this fool's whim?
Mm, mm, mm. You definitely dropped some jewels, Judge. I'm
See,
telling you, because I'm floored right now.
what are we doing? How crazy are we? That's
We on a
like
break.
Memphis. We got a problem. Memphis has a bad problem. I mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
Can't get the streets fixed, but you will help out 28 luxury rental properties and put up 200 some million dollars to finance that when you ought to be financing the streets. That would be good seed money to get some bond issues together on Wall Street so Memphis can buy some of these, well, modular tidal generators that the Japanese
Just want to say,
use these tidal generators, put them down in the Mississippi River, get baffles to control the silt going through them, and ramp up the velocity of the water flow, and you can get free electric energy that you can power up industry with locally, bring a lot of industry here to Memphis. You can sell the stuff from New Orleans to Louisville to Chicago, Georgia, Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, North Carolina, you name it. There's plenty of energy to be used up, plenty of energy to be produced, and you don't have to burn fossil fuel. Ford has put an entry level car plant here to make nothing but electric cars. Cadillac has one nearby. So,
but American cars always been trash, though, Judge. Their cars
well,
always been trash. Like I had 2 Cadillacs.
The point is California, the largest car market in the world, has decreed that in 12 years you won't be able to buy a new anything unless it's electric, and the 7 largest car manufacturers in the world have committed to selling or making nothing but electric cars in the next 12 to 15 years. The handwriting's on the wall. So
why do you think they're going that way, Judge?
Well, fossil fuel runs out, and it's a game. We don't need to rely on it. See, for right now, let's take the price of oil at the gas pump.
Mm.
They claim, well, in the Middle East, the prices went up, so we have to raise the prices. See, it takes about 14 months for crude oil to be refined and sold at the pump. So when we had these exorbitant pump prices, the price of oil that was being used was what it was 14 months to a year and a half ago. Biden released a lot of the oil reserves, and some of the oil reserves he released were put in the ground for reserves at $6.50 a barrel, not 95, not 120 something a barrel, but 6, 7, $8, and it's been there 75, 80 years, 90 years in some instances. Almost 99% of all domestically consumed oil is imported, and there's a game run on there, a con game on the American public. For every barrel, well, let's put it this way. When you import oil, 25% of it has to be put in the American oil reserves. And by law, Americans have to wind up paying the oil companies $5 extra per barrel over market price. For this, they have to put into the oil reserve. In fact, if they didn't pump another drop, the U.S. has enough in its oil reserves just on the main, Oahu, where Pearl Harbor and Honolulu are located. It's got enough there to run the American economy at 150% of its output right now for the next century if we didn't pump another damn drop. And they have recovered what they thought was the extinct bacteria that made oil. If you turn them loose on it and then put the goo under pressure, they can do that. So they take a 5 mile square field of garbage and in a year and a half turn it into functional oil without having to pump any more out of the ground. So we can do that. The problem is that they are making big money, and vested interests don't want anybody to come up with a concentrated program to get alternatives. You've got the Mississippi River and several spots on that river where you can generate an electric current without having to burn anything. You've got solar power, wind power, you've got the Pacific coast, you've got the East Coast, and you've got these huge tides that can be used to produce energy. You've got areas that you can't put anything in. You could deal with solar generation of electric power, not storing them in some kind of fanciful battery, but you can just dump it right into the net, and nobody's working with those things because right now it's tremendously profitable. You had Barack Obama, you had Bush in there, and what's the deal with those three? Aside from them being blood kin cousins, what happens is Barack Obama is the richest person ever to sit in the White House, and he gets it because his stepdad, who adopted him when he was about 2 years old, was one of the largest oil barons in the world and left him a huge trust fund in Indonesia, and that's primarily vested in oil. You will note that he pardoned 23 BP executives who were indicted for that Gulf rig blowout. That's before they even showed up for arraignment. So why? Well, his trust fund is a major investor in British Petroleum. Wow, whoopee. And what is his relationship? Well, Obama's maternal grandfather was first cousin to George Herbert Walker Bush, President of the United States.
Wow.
Also a cousin to George Walker Bush and cousin to Dick Cheney, Vice President of the United States, to George Walker Bush. And Obama is one of their cousins. You know that little thing where George W. and Michelle grinning.
They're always grinning with each other.
And, you know, he feeds her candy. What the inside joke is, that's the same kind of candy he used to feed her husband when he was 6, 7, 8 years old because they're family friends. I remember some years ago, I stumbled on a picture. It was interesting. There was George Herbert Walker standing there with a golf club over one shoulder. He was talking to Lolo Soetoro. That's Barry Soetoro's adoptive daddy. That's Obama's.
So the other guy's not his father.
Yeah, and Lolo, well, he adopted him before he was 2 years old, and he left him a huge amount of money as a 1/3 equal beneficiary to a trust fund left by one of the 10, 15 richest men on earth. Yeah, wow. So anyway, George W. is sitting in a golf cart. Standing next to him is Barack Obama, Barry Soetoro, and George W. has his arm around him, and Barry is somewhere around 8, 9 years old at the time. See, they were family friends. George Herbert Walker was into oil development. He had a thing called Zapata Oil, which would find out from Uncle Herbie, George Herbert Walker, who founded Halliburton in 1946. And he would give George Herbert Walker inside information on when oil was going to be pumped. So George Herbert Walker, with finance he had gotten from Uncle Herbie, would go around and for cash would buy up 15, 20, 25% of the mineral rights for people whose properties ringed the oil field that was going to develop. So he already had advance notice, and what he would do is he would start collecting 25% of the royalties. He became a very rich person, and he chartered a Bush family holding company known as Zapata Offshore Oil in Kuwait. By the way, 1990, when Hussein invaded Kuwait, he naturalized everything, and the Bush family was destitute. So where does Kuwait come from? You've heard of Lawrence of Arabia. They did a
Mm-hmm.
movie about it. So
Yeah.
Laurence Olivier played the part. And he was on a mission from Winston Churchill, who was First Lord of the Admiralty at the time, which meant something like Secretary of Navy in the U.S. And the British were suffering because the idiots that designed their warships forgot that when you shot something out at a long distance, it came down at a steep angle. Just physics, but they didn't realize that, so they built their warships with no deck armor. So the Germans shot the hell out of some British warships at a battle called the Battle of Jutland, May 31st, 1916, scared the hell out of the English because they thought they were vulnerable, so they needed to up armor their warships. The only way they could do it was to switch from coal to oil, but they didn't have an oil supply. So Churchill sends Lawrence off on this mission to find some place with oil. So he finds it. And in 1922, Churchill talked the English Parliament into two things. They bought a 51% interest in Anglo Persian oil, which is now BP, British Petroleum. And they sent the Marines in and they severed off southern Iraq from the rest of the country, and that became Kuwait. So that was 50 years before 1990. And you had a lot of Iraqis who were my age in 1990, or the age I am now in 1990. And when they were in their 20s, Iraq had that part of its country before the British ripped it off. You were talking about the British monarch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's one of the things that the British monarchy can claim a little negative credit for. So you have these things that tie in. So did we go to war in 1990 for a righteous cause? Or did we just deal with tidying up the tag ends of British imperialism and colonialism? And did we go to war so the Bush family would no longer be destitute? They could get back Zapata offshore oil. Now, tying it into the Obama boy, the half-breed Kenyan, what goes on there is that while we whoopee, you've got all of this oil that Halliburton is interested in developing. And here is Lolo Sotoro, the Obama boy's stepdaddy, who controls one of the largest oil producing businesses in the whole world. See, at the time, Indonesia might have been sitting on, still, hell, it might be sitting on top of the world's largest oil reserves. And there is Lolo Sotoro in charge. Now, how did he get in charge? Two ways. He was international executive vice president for Standard Oil. That was Rockefeller, and Rockefeller and Carnegie had propped up a Bush ancestor early in the 20th century and gotten him the position of becoming CEO, in effect, of a consortium composed of German arms manufacturers after World War I. Well, in addition to that, Lolo Sotoro was also possessed of a lot of muscle. He ran the death squads for the Indonesian government. He ran their local Gestapo. And at one time, they had a warrant out for him from The Hague that the U.S. interfered with back in the 60s, wanting him for the mass murder of 500,000 people. So Obama's maternal grandmother, who wound up being vice president of Hawaiian Bank, is acknowledged in a lot of now released documents to be the person that distributed the CIA funds in the Southwest Pacific. Well, Lolo Sotoro got a lot of that money. Why? This is the 60s. Remember, the NAM is going on. So he ran by contract the spy operations for the U.S. in Cambodia, Laos, North Vietnam, North Korea, and the People's Republic of China, as well as Indonesia. And he ran death squads. And when somebody was inconvenient, he'd send over an assassin. So you will remember that under the Ford administration, George Herbert Walker Bush was head of the CIA.
Hey,
So
yeah.
he had already been dealing with Lolo Soetoro in the oil business. And he knew Lolo Soetoro ran a spy agency out of Indonesia, and he ran an assassins guild out of the place too. And Obama Tang's grandmama pimped out his mama by giving her to Lolo Soetoro when she was 19 going on 20, so he would have him some American nookie after she had already helped things out by pimping her out to Obama Sr. And his birth certificate reads, the one that he had in college reads, he was born in room so-and-so at such and such Nairobi hotel. And his mother was an 18-year, 3-month-old Kansas student. So she got knocked up when she was 17, and it indicated she was single, not married. She was single, not married. And that Obama Sr. was the daddy, and the signed physician signs at his address, and all the details are on there. Now, why do we have that big thing about Birthgate? Well, it's simple. The Constitution of the United States talks about citizenship in 2 places. One, just general citizenship. All you have to do is either be born on American soil and you're an automatic citizen, or one of your parents was an American citizen, which makes you a citizen, etc., etc. Or in the alternative, when we're talking about president, there's a difference. You can be an American citizen, but you have to be born on American soil to be president. That means if you were born in American Samoa, Guam, Puerto Rico, American Virgin Islands, the Canal Zone at an American embassy or consulate or military or naval base, or a territory, protectorate, or a state, you're an American citizen and you can run for president. Your parents can be illegals, but if you were born on American soil, you can run for president. But somebody like Cruz, one of the Republican frontrunners, is not eligible under the Constitution to be president. Why? Because he was born in Canada. Now, that came up interestingly when they talked about Schwarzenegger running for president. They shut that down real quick. Arnold, governor, said, you're not born in America or American soil.
Well, Cruz.
Well, the Cruz, the Republican, Senator Cruz.
Yeah, he did try to run, though.
I know he did, but ignorance is ignorance. It's widespread in America right now. He's not eligible. That, by the way, is why we have the Electoral College. They're supposed to be familiar with these people and that weed out the ones that are sleeper spies for some foreign entity or weren't born in America on American soil. Another somebody that they talked about making president was British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. Why? Because he qualified as an American citizen. His mother was an American heiress, and his father was a British peer.
But he didn't like black people at all anyway.
Yeah, he renounced the citizenship so he could become Sir Winston, but he technically could have run for, well, he couldn't, but he was an American citizen. He had to renounce his dual citizenship. So you see, there are things like that that are written into American law. Now, we have this thing called impeachment. If you're impeached, that's like you're indicted. They still have to convict you. If you're impeached by the U.S. House of Representatives, you get tried by the Senate, and the Senate has to find the person guilty. And under Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution, if they do, the person is removed from office. And under the 12th Amendment, he can't run for office again. Now, there is a problem the Democrats created for themselves. They set the precedent for going after Trump 2 times. And the second time, occurred when he was no longer the president, and they wanted to go after him for acts allegedly committed while he was president. Okay.
Yeah, they just filed some new stuff against him recently. I ran.
But that's so much bullshit. I mean, I'm not even supporting him. It's just as somebody dealt with criminal law for a half century, federal and state, there's some wrong in that whole thing. Let me finish this whole thing up. Okay. They went after Trump for what he did as president when he was no longer president. That means they set the precedent that if there is a red wave, which is quite likely in the midterms, and the Republicans take control of the House, they can impeach Biden for what he did as vice president. And a more strongly entrenched Republican Senate could certainly convict him. Now, here's why they could. Article 2, Section 4 says you can be impeached and convicted for 3 things. One is bribery. Now, guess what?
Biden did that. Yeah, with his son.
Yeah, but hold on. Biden has been indicted in multiple counts of a very long Ukraine indictment that was unsealed shortly before the 2020 election. I'll get back to that in a minute. Treason. Well, treason is the only crime defined in the U.S. Constitution, and it requires certain things to prove it. Certain numbers of witnesses, what they must be able to testify to, and what the evidence has to consist of, and some things about admissions. Well, Biden got up in a thing I heard when it was live, a C-SPAN thing 4 years ago in January, and he said, he was joking. I guess I'm guilty of bribery. I told the Ukrainians that if they didn't back this guy off of my son and investigate him in their investigation of him, I was going to see to it that 14 billion in American loan guarantees were withheld. I guess that's bribery, actually, extortion too.
That's what it falls under.
Yeah, that's the second thing they can prove, and then the other thing is crimes and office. That's number 3. Felonies and misdemeanors. So we have evidence from the Ukrainians with their probable cause, with indictments in a criminal proceeding, with criminal procedure somewhat modeled on the American model. And Article 6 of the Constitution says treaties that have been ratified by the Senate are part of the supreme law of the land. And Article 1, Section 8 says it's the obligation of the government to, quote, enforce the law of nations, unquote. Well, the U.S. has treaties with Ukraine and with the Euro Union states relative to Interpol. And one of those treaties, both of those treaties schemes say that we will cooperate in apprehending criminal elements and extraditing them for trial. So Biden has been indicted by the Ukraine along with his son in 120 some count indictment for extortion, bribery, subornation and solicitation of treason and perjury and a number of other things. Hell, that's why he won't go to Ukraine, because he's subject to being arrested. Now, they'll yell diplomatic immunity, but it might be embarrassing.
Yeah, it might be embarrassing.
And that's why they send Kumqueenla over there, that idiot, Mrs. Harris, who's so embarrassingly ill-prepared. She throws out what the Europeans derisively call word salad. She won't listen. She doesn't have a thread. She just throws words out there. And so many of her staff are resigning because we stay up late at night, and the fool won't even read the stuff because she's lazy, which was her history as DA in California.
Yeah, but she knew how to lock somebody up, though.
Yeah, she did. But what she did, from the lawyers I know, when she wanted to make a point, instead of studying hard, she just hiked her line up a couple of inches and show more thigh.
And that's what, matter of fact, even before he died, Brown even put her out there like, I made you. You got beside yourself And now I'm gonna have to bring you down a couple of pegs. And then she went out with vengeance, started locking every black man she can find. If you even spit on the sidewalk, she locking you up.
Oh yeah. Now this is San Francisco. Remember?
Yeah.
The Justice Department found she gave the stiffest recommendations for simple possession of marijuana in the whole of the United States against black folk.
Yeah.
I had in-laws that lived in her district up there. They couldn't stand her. One of her little things, for example, there was a liquor store my late father-in-law, now ex-mother-in-law, used to shop at all the time. It was held up too many times, so her solution was not get the crooks. It was to close down the liquor store, convenience store. See, absolutely ridiculous. And then you ought to look into One West Bank with Soros and Mnuchin as the CEO, and 5,200 plus count multiple indictment sequence in San Diego County, LA County, Santa Barbara County, Ventura County, San Joaquin County, Orange County, et cetera, against One West Bank and Mnuchin, and how Mnuchin and Soros put a lot of money or raised a lot of money for her to become elected state attorney general for California, and how when she got there, she consolidated all 5,200 indictment counts and had them dismissed. And then they financed her to the tune of $13 million worth of fundraising through one of her assistants so she could run for Senate. And then when they got all that cleared up, Soros sold One West Bank for $4.2 billion back in 2014. I'm familiar with that because I had a house out there, a ranch in a place called Ojai, and three of my neighbors were in danger of being foreclosed on because of One West Bank fraud. And, she intervened and saved the bank. Remember, 5,200 counts of indictment. And she saw to it, and she got rewarded for her perfidy. And she became state's attorney, attorney general for the state of California and senator from California. He's got financed because of her wrongdoing. So, I mean, it is what it is, and that's the kind of game they play.
But do you think they'll go after Biden once, like they did Trump, like they doing Trump?
Oh, they ought to, because unlike Trump, Biden's actually done something wrong. Let me just show you how stupid people can get, and we buy it. Bribery, treason, and crimes in office. First proceeding against Trump was for he abused his authority and he obstructed Congress. Well, what is abuse of authority? If he vetoes something, hell, I guess that's abuse. That's obstructing Congress. But presidents do it all the time when they've
been doing it for eons. So why is it something new?
Let's back off of obstructing Congress, because that's the really stupid one. Abusing his authority, is that bribery? No. Is it treason? No. Is it a crime? Where is it defined? There's no such crime under American law. So that's dead on arrival. All right, obstructing Congress. That's the really stupid one. See, what's going on is these people in the House of Representatives were thinking, since the newspaper had called them congressmen for 100 years, that was all of Congress. No, Article 1 of the Constitution said Congress shall consist of two chambers, the House of Representatives and the Senate. And they were used to being referred to as congressmen. That came from a fact that back in the 19th century, those were the only people you could vote for, because the Senate was appointed by a state legislative body or the governor of the state. And you could vote for electors in your district, and they would elect the president. So they assumed that since they got obstructed as congressmen, everybody was a congressman. So as soon as it shows up in the House, they just did a poll. Hey, we're congressmen too, even though these stupid idiots don't seem to remember that. Anybody in here get obstructed? Not me, not me. Okay, that's out. So it was just an exercise in dumbness. Now, let's go down to Malargo. I'm not supporting Trump, but I'm looking at it as a criminal court judge. And the question strikes me as this. One, the case being Department of the Navy versus Egan, spelled EGAN, 1988. It was about confidential documents. And what the U.S. Supreme Court ruled very clearly was the United States Constitution gives the President of the United States unlimited authority to declassify documents or classify them. One, he's commander in chief of the armed forces, so he has the final say so as commander in chief as to what is classifiable or what is properly classified. All his generals can say, this should be classified. He said, well, I disagree with you. I'm commander in chief. The buck stops here. It's declassified. Now, here's the other thing. He can classify anything and he chooses to do. And also the Constitution makes him the chief diplomat. So let's supposing he's negotiating with, the president of France. No, let's say France, somebody friendly. And he said, hey, there's something you guys don't know. The CIA came up with this 411. I'm going to let you know. As a chief diplomat, the Constitution gives him the authority to declassify something for that purpose and give it to somebody. Now, what is Department of the Navy versus Egan says? The president has the constitutional authority that is non-reviewable to declassify any document in any way he chooses. Now, let's suppose that he decided to declassify everything that's in Malargo, but he chose to keep it confidential that he did. Mm-hmm. He can do it. Now, here's the other thing. There is the fact that when the documents were in the White House, who guarded the White House?
The
Secret Service.
Yeah.
One of the most prestigious security agencies in the world, the U.S. Secret Service. Who guarded Malargo under American law?
The Secret
Service. So the same people that were guarding the documents in the White House were guarding it in Malargo. So the FBI, representing the Justice Department, comes along and seizes it. And I assure you, the Justice Department security does not rise to the level that the Secret Service can provide. So now these documents are in a less secure place where some secretary, cleric, new employee, or somebody without a top secret clearance can come in and to their heart's content go through and copy the stuff. Some clerk preparing for some further legal proceedings can go in and copy the stuff. And the stuff is not secure. Next thing is this other important consideration. Purportedly, a lot of what was in those documents pertained to wrongdoing by the FBI. The FBI has been specifically forbidden by law to engage in domestic espionage or spying. If they're going to do that, they need a warrant. So what they had been doing is just on their own initiative, deciding that somebody was suspicious and they start spying on somebody. So you turn the perps loose on securing the evidence against themselves. Oh, wow, that's really dumb. So the president has it in his house. He took it out of the White House.
Yeah, actually carried it right in front on the news. Just carried it
out. So what happens is he's still president when he carries it out of the White House. So what does the case say? He may declassify by any means he chooses. So by carrying it out of there, he de facto declassified it. So what did he do wrong? Now, next thing under American law is two entities have a claim to the same movable property. If you want to get the right to have it, you have to proceed appropriately. That's called, if you want to get an apartment, you have to go through FED, forcible entry and detainer.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go through and get something like that, it's an action in replevin or detinue. In other words, you have to go in and file an action and get a court to say you're entitled to it. The other party gets to defend it. So there's a dispute over the right to possession. The president has already read it. So when they start talking about Trump was going to give it to the Russians, no, he could have told them. And he's a smart man. I know I can remember stuff I read 50 years ago, tell you what page it's on and what paragraph on the page it is. Some people are like that. So what are you going to do? Take it out of his memory? No, you can't do that. So the whole thing is bullshit. And this whole flummoxed bit about the master can't do it. Yes, he can. See, the person that granted the authority in the first place, the magistrate, he works as a functionary for the district court judge. So a district court judge can go back and say, no, this was inappropriate. And there are a whole lot of things going wrong with this, and it's a lot of nonsense where you're propagandizing the public with stupidity and wrongful information. And what strikes me is pink panty wearing fascists with long hair who are beatniks trying to impose the methodology of fascism on a country that's trying to get free. That bothers me, not so much Trump. See, I tried to protect the Constitution, but most of the time when I tried to protect it, it involved a bad guy. So I'm looking at the constitutional principle as a defense lawyer and as a judge, a prosecutor too. So I'm not worried about the individual as I'm worried about the principle of due process and constitutional law, and how if you set a bad precedent, it can come back and bite everybody in the ass.
Mm-hmm. But do you think Trump was working with Vladimir Putin? Do you think he was like pretty much
No, it does. Why?
Back pocket?
Why? That's what presidents do. That used to be clear, that you set up good relations with somebody so you could deal with them across a negotiating table. Remember, both of these guys have these huge thermonuclear arsenals at their disposition.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I just look at it.
Putin ain't no punk.
No, he showed enough ain't. No,
they got photos of him being on the ground down there doing that KGB stuff back in the day with the guerrillas and various and sundry African countries, and shooting people and putting knives in their backs and slitting throats.
Yeah, he ruthless. He's definitely ruthless.
And by the way, his income is reported to be, his net worth is reported to be somewhere around $172 billion.
Yeah, dog. I mean,
he's been working.
How much money do you need, though? I mean, really, just look at it, Judge. How much money do you need to survive?
Well, it's not survival. It's about power. At some point, you get in a position where even if you tried, you couldn't spend all the money you had or all of your resources in your lifetime. It's all about power. See, money is only a stand-in for access to things, food, machines, resources, minerals, water, climate, location. And when you have that stand-in, then you become the chief for real. So Putin is a real chief. And look at our little piece of urban trailer park trash in the White House, who's gotten rich off of the public. He's never had a non-government job in his life.
He's been with government for like 50-something years. That's all he knows.
Get to be a millionaire off of the government paycheck.
Yeah.
See, it doesn't match out.
I mean, I just look at it. I mean, they've been robbing American people for years. So what's going to stop it now? And I just look at it that we as American people, we keep falling for the same shenanigans. Like for a prime example, when he was running, he made a comment like, "You ain't black if you don't vote for me." That's like a spit in the American people's face, and they still voted for him. And it was like, yeah, we pretty much like we don't pay that no mind what he just said. All the stuff they don't talk about when Biden, like how they disrespected Trump. I'm not taking on, and I'm not a Trump supporter, but at the same time, I'm looking at how they treated Trump and look at how they treating Biden. Like they know this man dirty, but yet they don't want to accuse him or anything. They want to rub him the wrong way. And one thing I noticed too is that when he was vice president, Obama never allowed him to talk. He never, and he's doing the same thing to Miss Harris. He don't let her talk. He'll let her come out every now and then, but he muffle her a lot. What do you think on that?
Yeah. See, Kamala, I know some people that went to school with Kamala Harris. I know some lawyers that practiced in California when she was an assistant district attorney in San Francisco and then became state's attorney general. They were not too impressed by her intellect. By the way, I got introduced to her father sitting at the table of Jamaica's governor general one time, and he was introduced to me as Professor Harris, our fine, upstanding Hindu professor. Now, this thing about being black, I put in the context of she is a Tamil, Hindu, Brahmin caste person, and they tend to be paper bag brown, black hair, dark eyes, or they go to just off the boat dark. Now, I had several assistant producers that worked on my show I thought were black until they told me, "No, Judge, we're Hindu." I said, "Damn." And they were darker than Kamala Harris. But they said, "No, we're not black. This is what we look like." By the way, you remember the Aryan Supermen, the Aryan Nation, the Aryan Brotherhood, the Aryan Master Race? Well, anthropologically, guess what Kamala and her people are? They're Aryans. Those are what the real Aryans look like, just like Kamala Harris Imhoff. And why didn't she use her married name? Nancy Pelosi does. Gloria Feinstein does, you know.
All them crooks anyway.
Yeah, but they use their married name. Why didn't she use her married name?
She didn't want to get exposed.
Yes. See, and then what is her relationship with Juicy Jessie and that noose around the neck bit? She's his niece by marriage. She's his auntie by marriage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
See, and they met up that very same day that fool tried to pull off that lying prank. And the first thing that she and Cory Booker, when he wasn't down on his knees looking for a meat popsicle, was to come up with that anti-lynch bill. That's what led into the anti-lynch bill that had absolutely nothing to do with black folk that wound up getting passed. See, it was a charade. What it did is it interjected for the first time into the American legal lexicon in terms of federal law. It interjected sexual orientation. And it is really crazy. It doesn't have anything to do with lynching because it now defines lynching not just as a killing, but as a beating and as a kidnapping. And they confined it to three things: race, religion, and sexual orientation. Now, remember me saying that LGBTQ is a quasi-religious cult, secular cult? They're trying to turn LGBTQ into a real religion, so that's why they put the religion in that bill. And you see, a beating, let's suppose that since it doesn't require killing anymore and it doesn't require a mob, it can be just one person. How about this? Straight guy's out at a club. He's feeling down because his wife left him or his girlfriend left him. He's drinking. And some of what he thinks is an attractive woman, big boobs, nice tight behind, short dress, long hair. She's been dancing with him and they've been making moves on each other. He's putting a yard of tongue down his throat and what the hell is that? And this babe has a hard on. So he busts this thing and
Hey,
hit.
Judge, I want to show you something, Judge. I want to show you something. Look at this.
Yeah, I've seen those.
They got their own Bible, man.
I tell you.
Now,
let me get back to this. This brings it home to a lot of guys. You're dancing with this, what you think is a fine woman. You're kissing, you're dancing, slow dancing, and then it gets a hard on you. You get mad and you bust it in the jaw, and you split a lip, loosen a tooth. Guess what? That now qualifies as a lynching under federal law.
Wow.
Because you just beat him. You didn't have to kill him anymore. It doesn't have to be a mob. It can be one person. And it's nominally because of his sexual orientation. See, that it slipped that in on you under lynching.
30 rascals, man. 30 rascals.
Now, I'll tell you how bad that gets. I dated somebody for a long time, good friend of mine. We still talk. We're still very good friends. This woman had a son, now close on to 50. But he bought this house in West LA, nice house. He didn't realize he had all these gay neighbors. They came over and wanted him to put a rainbow flag in his front yard. So he said, So they started bringing their dogs over to crap in his yard. So in Los Angeles and in LA County, you're supposed to take the poop scoop or take the bag and clean it up. They weren't. So he was videoing this stuff and he caught them bringing this big dog into the middle of his yard and taking a crap. So they didn't pick it up. So he yells out the window and all this is on video. He says, "Hey, what the hell are you doing? Pick that shit up." So they called him the N-word several times. So he called them the F-word.
Faggot. Let me say it for you.
Faggot. And they ran down to the West LA precinct, LAPD precinct, and they got a warrant sworn out for him for hate crimes.
What?
So he goes to trial. The judge, from the transcript that they let me read, acknowledges that they called him the N-word a whole bunch of times, and he uses the fag word once or twice. He said, but calling you the N-word isn't a hate crime, but this is clearly a hate crime on your part. He got found guilty. He got sentenced to 30 days in jail. It was suspended. He had to do 250 hours of community service.
God Almighty.
He got 1129 probation, $2,500 fine. He, had to go through counseling and therapy because of being homophobic, which isn't a legitimate thing in it. And you see, that's where it goes to, and that's what they're trying to do to us.
Wow. Thank you, Judge. So, and you just expound on so much, Judge. I know you got a lot going on. I know it was hard for me to catch up with you, and I appreciate you coming on the show. And I just can you give the people something before we get up out of here?
Yeah, it takes hard work. There are no excuses. Any excuse you come up with, there's a label you can attach to the excuse. It's called adversity. And in Africa and a lot of places, adversity is known as Simba, the lion that will occasionally take a person and eat him or kill him. But in certain places, and I know some of the individuals who've done this. At 13 years old, the boys have to go kill Simba with a wooden spear with no iron tip to it. So if a 13-year-old boy can take on adversity that'll eat you, we can deal with anything else. So white supremacy is a reality, but don't let it cripple you. In other words, back in the 60s, we had a saying that James Brown parroted, and he said, get out of my way and I'll do it myself. We used to say, get the fuck out of my way and I'll do it my damn self. We never would have perceived that people would be talking about what white folk did to them, what white folk do to them, is an excuse for inaction. Yes, that should be motivation. In other words, you're angry because somebody is doing you wrong. Learn from what they did wrong and then do something about it. Don't expect them to do it for you. We never would have talked about it. What our objective is to get these evil white folk who did this is back in the 60s, to us to change it. Just get the hell out of our way or we'll move you out of our damn way. We're going to do it ourselves and do what needs to be done by any means necessary.
Yes,
now, by any means necessary got co-opted by the other side, so they'll lie, mislead, propagandize, whatever they want to get what they want. So they'll send out a Charlize Theron to corrupt your children and make it seem like it's all right, or have Walt Disney push that. But we have to deal with difficult situations, and every time we run into a different situation that's difficult, realize you're not alone. This is what our ancestors have done for eons. We've dealt with adversity and we wound up on top. We can do that still. Do what you need to do, get on top. So every day be prepared to do what's necessary, and that includes preparing yourself to do it, both by the knowledge, the tactics, the strategies, being proficient in doing what is necessary, and developing the mindset so it's can do, will do, shall do what I ought to do rather than just what makes me feel good.
Thank you so much, Judge, for coming on the show. Hope you have you. I know I got to have you on again because I have a lot more questions. And I know we was texting back and forth earlier that you was going on a flight. So, Lord willing, you touchdown again, man. I would love to have you back on the podcast, man.
Oh, no problem. Just give me a little dance notice and do something about that crazy stuff.
Yeah, I know, right? That we went through. So I'm just going to use StreamYard. Because both of us are more comfortable with StreamYard, so I'm just going to use StreamYard with that. So, Lord willing, next time you come on the show, you won't have to go through that.
All right, brother. Be good. Take it
Thank you, Judge. You have a good one.
My pleasure.
All right, you too, Judge.
Okay, I'm out of here. Hi, Brian. Got to go. This has been Judge.